Hello. How we doing?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm good. I love Taurus season. Like I feel like a whole new person after Taurus season. How was your new moon in Taurus?
I love it. I mean, I'm finding the
Mm.
energy, the first part half of this year has been like intense. Like I really have. So Taurus season was just like
A breathe.
yummy. I love Taurus season too. It's very like sensual, like things that feel
Mm.
good, things that I don't know, things that just make you feel good.
Pretty things.
Beautiful
Yeah.
things, things that taste,
Yeah.
yeah, all the
I
sensual pleasures.
Right. I bought so many plants. Like I messaged you, I had my plants catch an Uber to me. It was awesome. And I feel like my home is just so much more like grounding. It's been it's just been like healing and soothing as well. And I've
Yeah.
wanted to be a bit of a homebody, which was really nice.
Very much about home. I was traveling for a little bit and then
Mm.
yeah, and but I was also ready to come home. Like there's something, yeah, just about being home with my cat.
Aw, kitty.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you, but I think that like Taurus really is like that homey energy, decorating, making your home beautiful, making everything really comfy, feeling luxurious. And yeah, I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Me
We
too.
ready?
And now here we are, Gemini season, about to start to pick things back up, let's say. Which I am excited about. I have a lot of close people in my life that are Gemini, so there's going to be lots of birthday celebrations too.
Yeah.
Um,
Both of
yeah,
my
and
parents are Geminis. Both.
I was about to say, yeah, you too. Just my mom is a Gemini, but and my sister. So, happy birthday, our loved ones. We
Happy
love you.
birthday, mommy and daddy. And happy wedding anniversary. I think they had their 40th
Ah,
wedding anniversary yesterday. So
oh, my
yeah.
heart. That's so sweet.
Isn't it
I love that.
amazing? 44 years.
Look,
I'm just
I,
trying to
yeah,
stay alive for 44 years, let alone married. Like, wow.
I feel like that is an accomplishment because I mean, when you really start getting deep into a marriage and the understanding of it and how, I feel like there's this external, let's call it the social media perspective of relationships, that everything's just when you find your soulmate, everything is so beautiful and it's so flowy and you're always perfect. But I actually think that when you find your soulmate, it's a roller coaster, and the purpose of a soulmate is to bring out of you those things that you're meant to heal.
Yeah.
And I love when people just stick it through. I mean, there's a few things that could occur that I would be like, okay, time to let that relationship
Yeah.
go and find somebody new. But if you don't have those particular scenarios and you can get over those things, that really is like the healing side of relationships and healing through a soulmate. That is, I feel, one of the most beautiful, honorable accomplishments of life. So good job, mom and dad. We're proud of you. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Gonna cry.
definitely. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. It's such an amazing accomplishment, I think. And
Aw.
yeah, definitely not Disneyland. Like I was thinking about this the other day of like what we were really because I took my nephew to this beautiful like it was so fun, this Disney interactive um like animation kind of thing they have like I'm not sure if you've seen them for like Monet and Van Gogh and things like that where they project things onto the walls and stuff like that and it's like a really interactive experience. This one had Disney from woe to go, and it was like Disney like Fantasia and all of the like really old Disney. By the way, did you know that Winnie the Pooh is Disney? I never knew this.
No, I
I thought
didn't
it was
know
a
that.
fun thing, but it wasn't. It was one of the earliest like Disney. Disney
No,
things.
I didn't know
And
that.
so it was really fun and really cute. And
Love that.
but I was watching, and there was these like little girls dressed in their Frozen outfits. And when
Oh,
the music comes on, I mean, they were losing it, like having a massive like moment, singing like, oh my God, and just so in it. It was so beautiful. It made me cry. But I was also like, hang on a second, like all of these women are like, nothing in their life happens until they meet Prince Charming. Like their life is awful. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and then when they meet Prince Charming, everything is perfect, and he's perfect, and they're perfect, and it's like,
uh-huh.
I think this may have like programmed some unrealistic expectations of
Yes.
the Disneyland experience, but I still love
Yes.
like I love the romance. That's all I care about is the romance and the Disney experience. Not
Me
so into
too.
the like healing each other, triggering each other vibes.
That's like the post Disney, you know, because Disney is when you find Prince Charming and then they lived happily ever after.
Yeah,
But
right.
what's inside that happily ever after? Well, that's where the real part of relationships
Yeah,
comes out. And did
yeah.
you really find your soulmate? And are you really going to stick to the I do and
So
work through
trapped like
everything?
Cinderella. Like, you know,
Yeah.
but it's good. It's all good.
I
It's
would,
healing. And
yeah.
I think relationships are the biggest mirrors in our lives. Like they're the biggest healing
They
journey in our
really
lives.
are.
Because they're the most triggering, they're the most intimate, and
Yeah.
you know, that's what they're for,
Yeah.
right?
I feel like this is, yeah, such a beautiful way to wrap up Taurus season, seeing as Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is the planet of love. And Taurus is so grounding, but I actually learned that as a little fun fact, you are immediately attracted to another person before they, you know, when you're like, oh, it was like love at first sight. It's actually like kind of love at first sight of their aura. And what we are attracted to in their aura is not maybe what you desire, but things that you know and feel comfortable in. So that can be the good things that you're comfortable with, but also maybe those things that are unhealed that you're used to in your life that you're going to see in that person. And that's why when you actually find your soulmate, they're going to bring out all that stuff. And
Yeah,
you're destined, if you want to use that word, to heal together. Um, but I will also add, I've been having such a Disney fever. Like, I woke up one day and I think before I even said good morning to Alex, I was like, I really want to go to Disney. So I think we're hopefully gonna go, seeing as it's not too far from here.
let's say you're close
Hopefully that will
actually
be soon.
to Disney World.
What's
Oh,
that?
you're close to all those theme parks. So fun.
We're so close. We're so close. So yeah, birthday. Maybe I'll be recording the August podcast that we do from Disneyland, live from Disney. That would be so cool. Magic Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom. Oh my God, that's a dream come true. But I
Yeah.
have to
But
say
anyway.
that I did shed a tear at Bambi. Like when the Bambi, like the
Oh,
whole interactive thing, and all the fire came in, and Bambi was, I mean, yeah,
mm,
still to this day, still
of
makes,
course. Of course. I didn't. I think I've watched Bambi twice, and then I was like, I can't. No more.
but it's crazy how
'Cause
much of
like,
an impact Disney has made on our, like, imprinted on us also, not just relation,
yeah,
like everything. Such a
and
big part of our
everything.
childhood.
It
But
really is.
out of
Yeah.
fantasy
I,
and into reality, which is my full moon, which I feel like is gonna hit like a
it
ton of
is.
bricks. And
Oh,
no,
we're here for you, sending you love and healing and
yeah,
grounding in advance.
I'm kidding. But I mean, yeah, so
No, I know.
Sagittarius, it's our full moon in Sagittarius. And so it's really like the spotlight being shone on like our purpose and anything that is in the way of that. So if you do have Sagittarius placements, just be aware that you may feel this more heightened than other full moons. But yeah, so it's just when these the sun and the moon are in opposing signs, we get this full moon, and it creates this like very dynamic and powerful energy. And Gemini, Sagittarius energy. I mean, I know so many Geminis. Like I have so many Geminis and so many Sagittarius in my life. Um, and yeah, I think it's a pretty powerful one. But maybe other people that are in other signs like feel like their polar opposites are a very like powerful connection too. But it's always a time of culmination, completion, and really illumination. That's why I sort of say the spotlight of the full moon. That
Yeah.
lunation is really, really on these areas of our lives. It often brings to light issues that were previously hidden or unclear, and it just allows for resolution and understanding of these issues. So Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, of optimism, and higher knowledge. And so, really, the Sagittarius full moon really emphasizes these themes of expansion and exploration. So, Sagittarius energy really encourages growth. I don't even think it encourages, I think it demands growth. Like that's the
It's true.
reality. So growth, learning, exploration, it's time for seeking out new opportunities and broadening your horizons. So it's also a very philosophical sign. So truth and wisdom, like Sagittarius is really associated with truth seeking, wisdom. And so this period might bring clarity and insights, particularly in the areas like regarding philosophy. So when it comes to Bitcoin, it's really that more philosophical side of Bitcoin that is probably going to interest people or be highlighted during this time. So it's also very optimistic and, risk taking. So very adventurous spirit of Sagittarius can really inspire bold moves and taking calculated risks. So in terms of the markets, we're looking at expansion and growth opportunities. So may lead to optimistic market sentiment and maybe driving prices up in various sectors. So definitely those related to travel, education, and technology, which is obviously our interest. So, maybe even looking at those altcoins and sectors like AI, deepen, these kind of things that are really like technology driven, is also pretty interesting. I mean, crypto as a whole is technology driven, but definitely these specific areas might get a lot of attention. And, clarity and revelation. So like information that impacts the markets may come to light, which obviously influences trading decisions and market trends. So this period can reveal important information about Bitcoin, such as regulatory news, technological advancements. What's being built on Bitcoin is really interesting at the moment. There's a few very interesting projects that are being built on Bitcoin. And so, maybe those will move the markets. And I'm thinking in a positive way. Like we usually find this kind of local bottom around the full moon, and just with it being in Sagittarius, it is more optimistic. Jupiter's influence, it is expansive. So I'm expecting a more expansive move out of this full moon. What do you think,
Yeah.
Corinne?
No, I definitely agree. I am very excited about this full moon. Um I'm going to go ahead and share my screen immediately so we can look at the astrological chart. So for those maybe that are new to our podcast, here we at an astrological analysis, or rather just the positionings of what's been going on in the cosmos. So it's been really interesting to see, also just kind of to wrap up what's where did my moon phases go? Let's put some moon phases up so we can see those as well. There we go. So we had from the all-time high that was created, we've just had this period up until, I mean, we're recording today on the 15th of May. And so that's been more than 60 days of just Bitcoin with really just like finding its I feel like it's just finding support before it heads to its next expansion. And I also wanted to just remind us all that we've only just come out of the post shadow Mercury retrograde on the 13th of May. So this has just been a stabilizing period, I feel is like the best word. And for you guys watching this recording or this podcast on the full moon day, we would have just gone past the Venus Uranus conjunction and the Jupiter Sun conjunction on the 18th of May. So I think we've already started to see the expansion happen there with Jupiter's influence and also Uranus, which is so big for technology and breakouts as well. So maybe on the day of or couple days before or after the full moon, I do feel like we'll create that local bottom, or maybe there could be a little bit more of like a little pullback, but nothing big, because the astrology that I'm seeing from this 18th of May onwards is just looking really great for Bitcoin. Just looking at the transits specifically for Bitcoin on the 23rd of May, so the full moon in Sagittarius. The outer planets that are still lingering, because Claire, you touched on regulation, and
Mm.
that's represented by the 10th house. So Bitcoin's natal 10th house. We still have Uranus that is playing in there, and that's an outer planet. It takes some time. We'll talk a little bit on Jupiter and Venus now out of that and moving into the 11th house a little later on. But now we've also had Mercury come in and be that and be in that 10th house. So with Uranus still in the 10th house, this is potentially still some sort of sudden changes or disruptions, in particular when it comes around regulation. And now with Mercury that's come in and also joined Uranus, there could be an increased news or flow or announcements regarding the regulation. And that could either stabilize or destabilize. It just depends on the type of news that comes out. And generally, that's just the volatility that we've been seeing for these past 2 months. So there's a little bit more of that to come, but it is starting to look a bit positive, a bit more positive. And also, just touching still on the outer planets, we still have Uranus that is square the natal Neptune of Bitcoin. This is taking a while. Again, these outer planets take some time to go through, and that creates confusion and uncertainty around Bitcoin's long term vision, ideals, and its role in the financial systems. So, this aspect here was kind of what we have been seeing, these short term dips in the market. But for us, that, we're here, we understand what Bitcoin is and its technology, we understand, or hopefully that helps us with feeling less confused for its long-term outlook, but definitely a bit more confusion that creates for the short-term outlook. And another important thing is also that Mercury, while it's transiting, especially during these degrees in the 10th house, it is square the natal rising of Bitcoin. And we spoke last episode how that's really important, the rising sign in regards to the public image. So, or the public image of Bitcoin. Um and at the same time, because I think these two things intertwine, while it's squared, so creating some challenges around the public image, it's also trine the sun. So that's positive. So this is good. This is like people trying to understand at a public level, what does Bitcoin look like? And
Mm.
with that positive trine, it's like, hey, this is Bitcoin's core identity being understood and publicly received. Like people are starting to understand its purpose more and more. So I wanted to touch on those because they're really showing up with this full moon. And to add on to the full moon in particular, or that particular aspect. So we do have the full moon occurring in the 5th house of Bitcoin while the sun is transiting through the 11th house. So the 5th house is creativity, but also risk. And if anything, I feel like this is empowering us for risk taking, of course, calculated and managed risk. But it's like, hey, this is a more favorable time to take a chance on Bitcoin. And with the sun going through the 11th house, then that is the community and the gains of the community as a whole. And so this is a positive thing for that potential expansion during this full moon time. And like I just kind of showed, I feel like, I mean, we're already seeing it today. Again, this is the 15th of May, we're recording this, but I do feel like we are headed in a more positive direction, thanks to this full moon, and of course these other various aspects that are occurring. Shall I touch on a few more aspects that I see happening in this full moon, Claire, or was there anything that you wanted to add to that
I
before I go
might just
on?
talk about, I mean, we did touch a bit on it a bit last episode, on the 23rd as well, the same, just a little bit,
Yeah.
a couple of hours before the full moon. We spoke about the Venus
Mhm.
conjunct Jupiter in Taurus.
Yes.
So we did already discuss it a little bit, but just to refresh,
Absolutely.
it's just such a beautiful aspect, actually,
So
conjunct.
positive.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
positive. So Venus and Jupiter, we love both of them in terms of financial astrology.
Mm.
They also generally bring positive influences. So when they come into conjunction and they align at the same degree or close to, their energies really combine, creating this powerful and auspicious kind of influence. So Venus represents love and beauty and harmony, values, and also finances. And then, as we said, Jupiter symbolizes expansion, growth, abundance, and optimism. So this is why I feel like this full moon is going to be quite optimistic and quite expansive. And again, Taurus is the earth sign that's ruled by Venus, and so associated with stability, practicality, and material wealth. And when Venus and Jupiter conjunct in Taurus, the effects are just like magnified. So definitely in the areas of finance and also material security. So there's definitely some increased optimism that comes with this conjunction, a focus on wealth creation, like promoting growth and expansion, leading to increased opportunities for wealth creation. And
Yeah.
so we probably will see a market uptick in investments, particularly in sectors related to luxury goods, real estate, agriculture, and mining. So anything tourist related, and really, again, a focus on value. So Taurus influence like emphasizes that value and security. So the focus is really going to be on intrinsic value of Bitcoin. Again, like you said, the long-term potential. And I think what's happening at the moment, or this cycle, is Bitcoin is really separating itself from crypto. So
It really is.
yeah. So, I mean, you guys know that we are pro crypto here. We think that there's amazing innovation within crypto, but it's different to Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So we're not in the school that like everything but Bitcoin is a shit coin, but we do believe that they're different. And so I think that that's really coming through this cycle because it's less retail driven and more, institution driven. And so I think we're going to see a little bit more of that. But I think, yeah, I think it's a really beautiful conjunction, and I'm
It
excited for it.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good, we can definitely continue and circle back because there's definitely a lot more happening around this full moon, in particular to Bitcoin's aspects. But just on that point of Bitcoin really is differentiating itself from the crypto space. And on the 23rd of May is also the first deadline for the SEC to make a decision on the Ethereum spot ETF, which we did touch on last episode as well. Um, and I'm just really interested to see, actually, I might put this up so you guys can see as well the various deadlines, because it's just the first deadline, which is for Van Eck.
Mm.
Um, so the first deadline is on the 23rd, and this is the final deadline. So this is on the 23rd. It's for Van Eck. You can see you have all of these other institutions that have other final deadlines. And the reason why majority of people are expecting maybe, or there's a inclination to expect a similar outcome to what happened with Bitcoin, was that when and I think it was ARK Investments had the first deadline, final deadline for Bitcoin. But
Yeah.
what happened was that then all of them were approved despite their other deadlines when there was the final deadline for that one institution. So we're seeing now, all of this happening with Ethereum, waiting to see whether it's going to be approved or not. And I think that one of the biggest question marks when it comes to Ethereum and whether or not it will be approved or not is kind of this question around, is the SEC going to class Ethereum as a security or not?
Yeah.
And because if it is a security, then they cannot approve the ETF. That's from my level of understanding. And what I just found funny, because especially when I teach, I want to show like, okay, so like, can we define a security? Like, what is a security? And so I went and looked at that. The SEC actually defines securities based on something that's called the Howey test, which is like answering 4 questions. And this method was developed in 1946. A little outdated,
Dated.
a little outdated. And I'm just like, I kind of just want to be like, come on, like get with the times, people. Like, I love that Claire's just like, I'm just gonna sip my tea right now.
Yeah.
So it's just
Corinne
interesting to
spilling,
see. Say that again.
Corinne spilling the tea.
I just feel like it's a little ridiculous.
Mm.
There's a lot of ridiculous things happening in the world right now. But I just think it's time for an update, and I think it's time that we look at where we are at now. And we have such new technologies and ways of even just functioning, like even just our whole economic system and how it has shifted from back in 1946, even with just electronic payments, not even looking at crypto. Like there's just so many things that have changed that I feel like it doesn't take an economics PhD to be like, maybe we should update a few things and how we define things. So for those interested, the questions around the Howey test, they were developed by the Supreme Court. And they are 4 questions or attributes that class it as a security. If it's an investment of money, if it's a common enterprise, if it has reasonable expectation of profits, and if there are managerial efforts of others. That's kind of like to summarize it and make it simple. I also feel like that's very vague in itself. But I guess I just wanted to point out that this is kind of a the biggest question mark that I'm seeing occurring around whether the Ethereum spot ETF will be approved or not,
Yeah.
really based on how they choose to classify Ethereum. So
Mm.
that's all happening on the 23rd of May too,
Interesting. Very interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it may
mm,
be like alt season coming. I think if that does get approved during at that time, which we're not saying it is, we obviously have no idea. There'll probably be some fake tweet the day before and then it'll be released. But maybe Gary's got
how
his
was there no how was there no investigation after that? Like how was nobody fired?
none.
How was that not like massive manipulation in the market?
Hope
Just
Gary has
BS.
2FA activated this time. It's massive market.
Hopefully they learned.
But yeah, so it could be quite
Definitely.
positive also for altcoins on the other side of
Maybe.
that. I mean, even looking at that astrology, I mean, I do think it is primarily for Bitcoin, you know, the way it talks when you're talking about values, when you're talking about long-term investment, when you're talking about innovation, that for me
Yeah.
speaks Bitcoin, but there are a lot of crypto projects as well that align with that too. And so yeah, I'd keep an eye on those, especially as we move into Gemini season, which is more Mercury orientated. And I think we'll definitely see some, you know, AI is going to be an interesting narrative for sure, as it already has been. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think projects like that. But I think it's also like being able to seek out projects that actually are innovating, that actually are creating new
That part.
tech. They're not just marketing. And yeah, that kind of just comes with experience to be able to spot those a little better. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
I
we,
just
sorry, carry
I
on.
would just add, no, that's okay. I would just add to the Gemini like season that you're talking about as well, that it is ruled by Mercury, so the communication. I fully agree with DeFi, and I think that DeFi is something that is quite favored by Gemini and Gemini season.
Yeah,
I also feel like Gemini, because of that communicative side, like I'd probably see like that uptick in like a lot of like news and tweets or X posts, whatever we call them now. But also then like with the adaptability, because I feel like Gemini is such an adapting sign.
yeah,
And I could see how this will be a period of time where a lot of businesses or even governments will continue or fasten their adaptability of not maybe just Bitcoin, but the crypto market as well. So I think that will be big for sure.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that too. And yeah, so I mean, Jupiter enters Gemini on May 26th. So I think this is like quite an interesting one again. We're always
Yeah.
looking, we're always interested in what Jupiter's doing. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of an important factor for us. So, you know, as you said, Gemini is an air sign ruled by Mercury, really focused on communication, information, adaptability, intellect. And again, Jupiter, we already said expansion, growth, optimism, abundance. And so this really represents like opportunities for higher learning and philosophical outlooks. So when Jupiter changes signs, it shifts its focus and influence to the characteristics and domains governed by that new sign, which is Gemini. So really focused on information and communication, emphasis on the exchange of ideas, data, and information, and learning adaptability, like opportunities for learning new skills and adapting to changing circumstances. So, like, what does that look like? It always makes me think of like what Andrew really focuses on, what he talks about a lot about the infrastructure, crypto infrastructure, who is building the infrastructure, rather than just like, oh, we've got this NFT project that's like a dog photo and it's going to change the world. It's like that's just marketing. That's not, there's not real
Yeah.
innovation there. Now, I do believe the technology behind NFTs is innovative, but I think in, you know, the form that we saw it like last season, you know, that wasn't really innovation. You've got to be able to decipher during Mercury season, Gemini season, that
Kind of same.
to decipher, yeah, same, but different. But yeah, but you've got to be able to decipher, like there is going to be an uptick in information coming at us. And so you've got to be able to read between the lines of like what actually is innovation, what's a new idea, or what's just spin. And I think that's going to be important. So also focus on networking and connection. So building networks and building connections. So I think a focus on communities and things like that as well. We probably will
Yeah.
see increased market activity. So just that dynamic
Mhm.
nature of Gemini combined with Jupiter's expansive energy can really lead to like increased trading activity. You know, and a bit more volatility than we saw in Taurus season. Um,
Yeah.
and so like information driven sectors may see significant growth. I also think in terms of Bitcoin, news, rumors, and information will really play a critical role in Bitcoin's price movement. So staying updated is like important. And again, like look at where you're getting your news from. Like don't take financial advice from CNBC. Like it's not
Or Jim Cramer.
yeah, he's definitely a sell signal. Opposing a contrarian signal for sure. Yeah, so Jupiter entering Gemini really brings this wave of information-driven energy to the markets. And so for Bitcoin, this translates into volatility, as I said, and a focus on the innovation and the technology side of Bitcoin. So there's a lot happening in the macro markets at the moment, which I will, and the bond markets, which I will talk about a little bit later. But this is like why we shift our focus to the actual like innovation of Bitcoin, why it was created, the problems it solves. And so I think that again is going to become a focus. And I'm hoping in Gemini season that that is really communicated quite rapidly and people get it, people understand it, rather than just like, is it going up? Is it going up? You know, there's more to Bitcoin than that, and you're missing the point if that's all you care about. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
an interesting one.
I, I think that this Jupiter transition is so important.
Mm.
And you know, right before that, and connecting it to the full moon on the 23rd, is that we have Jupiter and Venus that are conjunct. They are right on the 29th degree of Taurus, right before they make that shift. And so I think it's important to touch on that as well. And as they're, and especially on that 23rd precisely,
Yeah.
um, they are, both Venus and Jupiter are trined with the natal Jupiter of Bitcoin. So this adds to that expansion, prosperity, and just growth. And what like a trine is, we have to think about that it's a positive, it's a harmonious aspect. And while it's on the 29th degree of Bitcoin's or sorry, 29th degree of Taurus in now the 11th house, this is a critical degree which creates like an extra kind of like, it's like a powerful like setup for Bitcoin. Like it's really preparing for that 11th house theme of value and community. So
Mm.
I feel like this is, I feel like it's a key turning point, and that's what we like to use astrology for also, like to really like find those dates that are going to be those turning points.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of them. Um and so that then as it transitions into Jupiter transitions into Gemini, and we also have Venus transiting into Gemini at the same time. Venus is going to be in Gemini for a shorter period of time because it's a more inner planet that moves faster, whereas Jupiter is going to be sitting in there until the 9th of June 2025.
Mm.
So we've got a nice year long of this energy.
Yeah.
Um, just to touch on Venus. So, Venus, as we know as well, is a planet sure of love, but also of value and finances. In Taurus, it was very much about that stability, the material gains, and also setting us up for something long term. Whereas now, as we've shifted into Gemini or Venus in Gemini, it's like a more fluid but dynamic, Gemini has those two sides to it. So, the duality of it. So, we can expect definitely just more movements, definitely more than what we've been seeing during this Taurus period of time. So I feel like it's really that increased volatility, but also, and I want to word this carefully, I feel like it's opportunities for quicker results than we may have seen before. But remember that element, sure, of risk, but managed risk, and just being very careful, because sometimes volatility, if you're not managing your risk correctly, as positive it may seem, what you actually execute may be a little bit too risky and might not bring positive outcomes. So that's really important to continue taking an eye out, or to keep an eye out on. And yeah, so I feel like both with Jupiter and Gemini shifting into Gemini. Did I say that right? Venus, Jupiter shifting into Gemini. It's a period of, yes, flexibility, volatility, adaptability, but also us as investors, we need to be like quick thinkers, quicker than usual, just because of maybe how things may play out. And as this new information is coming out, people, and as we look at like the psychology of a market cycle, majority of people tend to react to what occurs in the market. And we tend to, majority of people tend to be quite emotional, and that's what's then shown in price. So if we know that information, we can take a step back and we can say, okay, I don't want to fall into that trap. I'm going to manage my risk accordingly. I'm going to think quickly, but while always, those lessons that we learned from Jupiter being in Taurus, which was but I'm going to remain stable with my plan and look for the long term. I think that's the best approach during this time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we sort of come into this Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries on the 29th. And so this is a little bit more figuring things out, I think, kind of energies.
Yeah.
You've got Mars representing action, drive, ambition, and aggression, and it rules how we assert ourselves and pursue our goals. And then we have Chiron, which I did speak about in the last episode, known as the wounded healer. And it really represents like our deepest wounds and the potential for healing and growth through understanding and overcoming these wounds. So Aries is also a fire sign, so ruled by Mars. So associated again with initiative, courage, and very much a pioneering spirit. So when Mars and Chiron conjunct in Aries, this alignment really sort of emphasizes like healing through action. So it brings the potential for like healing very deep issues through assertive action. So we'll be confronting our weaknesses. There may be a focus on addressing the vulnerabilities and transforming them into strengths. So when it comes to Bitcoin, I think that there are some, sort of not in the technology itself, not in the code or anything like that, but it's sort of, I think we will see there are some differing values within the Bitcoin community, let's say. And so I think that we'll see this as a bit of a time. If you enjoy that, get onto crypto Twitter. I'm sure it'll be really fun for you. I don't
It
really,
will be.
I don't really enjoy arguing with strangers on the internet, so it's not for me. But you do you. But yeah, I think there's a very like dynamic and impulsive energy. And the combination of Mars's assertiveness and Chiron's healing can create a really charged atmosphere, encouraging bold, but sometimes impulsive decisions. So this period can really encourage like very bold moves and innovative strategies. So sectors like Bitcoin, I mean, for the rest of the world, for us, we see Bitcoin as risk off, but for everybody else in the world, every other investor, they see it as risk on. So this might be a time when people are more likely to take that bold step, take that risk, and move into risk on assets. But yeah, so sectors that are pioneering new technologies or methodologies may see increased activities. And I think the key thing there is technology, methodology. So Bitcoin is not only a new technology, it's also putting forth a new way of doing things. So also there's opportunities to address and resolve financial challenges or past mistakes, so leading to potential recovery and growth. But just want to be a bit careful because there may be some risk-taking behavior. So as I said, investors might be more inclined to be risk on during this period, and it can lead to like speculative trading, overhyping, and maybe, but potential price surges as well. So just look at that. But really the focus of this time is like actually confronting and addressing weaknesses. So there may be a focus on addressing vulnerabilities within the cryptocurrency market or even within Bitcoin, maybe security issues, regulatory challenges again. And yeah, that could affect Bitcoin's price for sure.
Yeah, I think I feel like that was the 29th of May. I do feel like that's the start of like a next little turning point. So like kind of to draw a picture, I'm really feeling like this full moon or prior to that with these various beautiful conjunctions that we're having on the 18th of May. It's like it's just positive, like, and that I feel like that's when we start immediately with those heightened energies or feelings. People are immediately jumping straight into a little bit of that greed or euphoria. And the
Yeah.
29th is going to be that turning point because and we'll probably just we'll drop these in the comments and notes below on the episode. But you know, leading up to that, we have really beautiful aspects and harmonious aspects happening for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In between from the full moon to that 29th of May, we have Venus that is trine Bitcoin's natal Mercury and sextile the natal moon of Bitcoin. So that's really beautiful, attracting more investors. Then we have Mars sextile the natal Neptune. So think Mars is what like ignites things. It's that Aries energy behind it too. And with Neptune, that it inflates and creates dreams and sometimes a little bit illusions too. So we have to be careful of that. That's like probably a bit more of like a bullish time. And then in between as well, we have Mercury sextile the natal Uranus of Bitcoin and trine the natal Saturn of Bitcoin. So see how these are all like harmonious, beautiful aspects that really just stimulate market activity and are attracting investors.
Yeah.
On top of that 29th of May, and why I also really see things starting to turn around is that the 29th of May, particularly for Bitcoin, is that Mercury that's, you know, quickly moving through Taurus. It's going to be square the natal Neptune. And also we have the moon that is conjunct the natal Neptune at the same time. So Neptune's really, Bitcoin's natal Neptune is really being hit. So again, we spoke with Uranus and being squared natal Neptune. It's like that confusion and that emotional flux that could definitely impact us as investors, and then therefore, in fact, affect Bitcoin's price. With the Mercury, it can be, you know, that misinformation, miscommunication, misunderstandings, and with the moon being conjunct moon, think about it's like those emotional, deep emotional feelings that we have, and its sensitivity, but also irrational reactions. So I feel like that's where the instability comes. And I see that up until the 1st of June. And the 1st of June is kind of the big one that I'm seeing happening. I mean, in between, we have the moon being sextile natal Mars. So that might make a bit more of that energized action, whether up or down, we'll see. And then also the moon conjunct the natal Uranus. So while it's also in opposition, the natal Saturn is just adding to that recipe of like, instability, volatility, and people's emotions being heightened. Now, really on that 1st of June, which I think will be, and here we're looking again at Bitcoin specifically, is that then we have Saturn, which is in opposition to the natal Saturn of Bitcoin. At the same time, we have Saturn being conjunct the natal Uranus. And remember that Saturn creates resistance. Now, that doesn't always have to be a negative thing, because sometimes that can actually be, hey, instead of resistance, it's just creating a really solid support. So if we're seeing Bitcoin's price drop there, that's actually probably for us as investors a good time to be like, hey, Saturn's really involved here. This is creating a really solid support. Of course, back that up with your technicals. So that could be a really great opportunity for us to look at maybe potentially other sorts of entries And at the same time, there's also the moon square the natal Mars of Bitcoin and conjunct the natal moon of Bitcoin, all happening at the same time. So this can be like even more on that volatility. I know it's a word I keep saying, but that's just really like,
Yeah,
there's just no smooth sailing around this time. And also like a bit of a recipe of like stirring up like aggressive market behavior. So and think of that with all that's happening with Neptune, it's just like the confusion. So I think it's really important for us to be aware. And, you know, if you guys are new to financial astrology, these might be just some nice dates to mark up in your charts. And just keep an eye out between that 29th of May, 1st of June, and catch yourself with the types of emotions that you might be feeling during that time for what's occurring in the markets.
totally. Totally. And
Yeah.
my last one that I've got to bring to the table is just a
Hmm.
fun, positive one. Again, Venus,
Yay.
loving Venus. Um,
Love Venus.
so it's we've got a Venus Cazimi on the 4th of June. And so
Beautiful.
it's like when it's in the heart, when the planet's in the heart of the sun, it's said to be in the Cazimi when it's in the heart of the sun. And so this position is considered like really powerful and auspicious state, really amplifying the planet's positive qualities. So we had a Jupiter Cazimi like this week, and
Oh,
then we have now the Venus Cazimi, which is so exciting. And so
so
again,
beautiful.
it's in Gemini, so enhanced communication and negotiation. So when, you'll often hear us talking about Mercury retrograde, and we're like, don't get into it at this time. This is actually a really good time to get into it. If you want to, in a
Yes.
very like loving, constructive, in a way, what Corinne was talking about, like in a relationship where you're like kind of healing each other and you're like through triggers and through discussions and growth. This is a really good time for that. So enhanced communication and negotiation. So it's like a harmonious influence of Venus combined with Gemini's communicative nature can really lead to improved negotiation skills and just clear communication, clear understanding. So focus on relationships and partnerships. So this is a period that may highlight the importance of relationships, both personal and professional, with an emphasis on intellectual connection and mutual understanding. Also, Venus and Gemini can bring opportunities for financial gain through intellectual pursuits, communication, and networking. So I see this as a really auspicious time in terms of the positive market sentiment um, with the Venus Cazimi. And so it'll leave the markets just feeling more optimistic and confident. So I'm expecting to see
Wow.
increased trading activity. Again, it's that Gemini communicative energy that can just really result in heightened activity, increased volume and liquidity in the market, and just more market participants, really. And so, yeah, I think it's positive sentiment for price movement as well. The optimistic energy of Venus Cazimi will probably lead to positive sentiment in the markets, and Bitcoin prices will hopefully experience a bullish expansion out of that as well. So,
Wow.
yeah, I think it just brings the Venus Cazimi just brings this wave of positive energy and intellectual focus to the financial markets. So for Bitcoin, this period is really, marked by positive sentiment and just increased interest and in an intellectual way. It's not just like, oh, my friend told me to put money into this and like hopefully it'll go up. It's like, no, it's like in a very like intellectual understanding what Bitcoin is, understanding how to trade if you're going to trade, like those kind of things. So investors should really leverage this optimistic market conditions and focus on technology, communication sectors, and really stay informed about you know, what's going on in the market, what's being communicated. Any news, like I always overlay news on top of my trading, and I really recommend that because it really is used to shift the market. And so you can kind of get a heads up if you look at when there is news coming out in the markets, and get a bit of a heads up on when those pivot points in the markets may be, as well as our layer of astrology over the top too.
Course. The stars are there too. And I think that, such a big uh beautiful characteristic of the Gemini energy is like wanting to learn and like education. Like I look at the different Gemini aspects that I have in my personal chart, and I'm like, yeah, that's where I have like heightened interest and like that intellectual like desire to like
Yeah.
learn and understand things. So I feel like this is definitely that period of time with now a lot of planets shifting into Gemini. I mean, around that time as well, I believe it's the 3rd of June, 3rd, 4th of June, we also have Mercury going into Gemini. So that's so harmonious after this, I'm going to call it icky period of Mercury being in retrograde and just this whole April period. Of just Mercury being in retrograde, like things are not aligned, things are not like, they're not harmonious, and now finally Mercury is at peace in that Gemini energy. Like, it's a lot of news will be coming out, there's going to be a lot of chattiness, but I feel like it's going to be favorable. With Bitcoin, I did see that there's a bit of a square. So Mercury is going to be squared the natal Venus of Bitcoin. But I feel just within that, it's going to be like, okay, so people are going to be having discussions around the value of a Bitcoin during this time. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this time, because I feel like, after this settling down period and kind of, I feel like it's also been a bit of a recharge period. If we have surrendered to it, it's just been like a recharge, reset period. Now we're going to see things start to move again and start to bring, I don't love to use the word excitement, but it is a healthy excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where I think, really make sure for all of us that have been sticking through this period, because I've seen people drop off crypto already. It's only been 60 days since the all-time high. We had a new all-time high. It's only been 60 days. But so many people are like, nah, crypto's boring.
Yeah.
Is the bull run over? And I'm like, we ain't seen nothing yet. Like, the outer planets are aligning so beautifully. We've been saying this for now, like several episodes. The outer planets are aligning for Bitcoin and crypto and technology so beautifully.
Yeah.
And this was just kind of like the test, to see like, yo, who really wants to stick this through. So don't go anywhere. Like, really make sure that you're locked in this time and stepping into this learning even more energy with Gemini.
Absolutely. And we have, at the end of this episode, we're going to do some of our own technology Gemini announcements. So stay with us. But first, I'm just going to talk about some of the craziness that's been going on in the world, in the macro markets, in the bond markets this week. Absolutely wild. So first, I'm going to share this tweet from Elon Musk. And I just want you guys to keep this in mind. While we discuss the next thing that we're doing. So can you guys see that?
Yes, it is open or
So
shared now. Yeah.
he's basically just saying, initially he's got the rules of monopoly rules. What if the bank runs out of money? Some players think the bank is bankrupt if it runs out of money. The bank never goes bankrupt. To continue playing, use slips of paper to keep track of each player's banking transactions until the bank has enough paper money to operate again. The banker may also issue new monies on slips of ordinary paper. And so he's titled this tweet, How the Federal Reserve Works. And so I just want you guys to keep that in mind as we talk about what happened in Japan this week. And between the US and Japan, no major news outlets covering it at all, but make no mistake, it is actually huge. This tweet from Marty Bent on the 9th of May really kind of spells it out. So bailing out the banks is cool and all, but bailing out the central banks is even cooler. So that's basically what America has done, is they've upgraded from bailing out the commercial banking sector to now bailing out central banks. Now, the reason that they did this, so I'll read a little bit into this and then I can explain the backstory of it. But the Bank of Japan, we've talked about it. We talked about it in our last episode, I believe, or maybe the episode before, has been really struggling to defend the Japanese yen from debasement for the first 4 months of this year, as the pressure of higher interest rates begins to crack the facade of 30 years of heavy monetary intervention. A couple of weeks ago, the USD yen pair popped above 160 for the first time since 1992. As the yen ran towards 160, the Bank of Japan attempted to stem the bleeding by intervening, but their interventions proved to be lackluster. The yen recovered to 52 against the US dollar early last week, but then climbed right back up to 155, where it sits about now. So the inability of the Bank of Japan to prevent the yen from running higher obviously spooked the US Treasury and the Federal Reserve, because yesterday morning it announced that the US and Japan had agreed on a Forex intervention plan via a swap line through which the US will supply Japan with dollars in exchange for yen. The reason that the US is stepping up to help with this intervention is because Japan is the largest holder of US treasuries in the world. And the last thing that US needs right now is for Japan to be selling its treasuries en masse so they can get dollars to defend the yen. I imagine the conversation went something like this: don't touch those treasuries, we'll just give you the dollars. So I mean, this is insane. It's completely unprecedented. Not sure how long it can go on for, because, but I mean, who knows? It could go on for the rest of our lifetime. It could unravel tomorrow. But really, as he sort of insinuated, as Marty insinuated in this article, this isn't really the United States going, well, we love you, Japan, you're a loyal ally. There is an element of that, but it's about Japan is the largest holder of US debt in the world. And I don't even know what would happen if they started dumping it. I guess we then would move to again, we've talked about this before, who would buy the debt? Who is buying the US debt? And at the moment, Japan they've been the main buyers. But I guess it would go to the buyer of last resort, which would be the Federal Reserve itself. So I think we have officially moved into the economic era that I'm going to call robbing Peter to pay Paul, because they really are just supporting the yen so that they do not sell their debt. And this, in essence, is, I think, if you guys remember, maybe about 4 months ago, we discussed the bond market, and I said, keep an eye on the bond market. How will the US bail out the bond market? Well, this is part of it. This intervention is part of that. And so, yeah, it's really, really interesting. As I said, completely unprecedented. The debt stack has kind of moved from the consumer to business to the banking sector to the state level, and now it's at the central banking level. So, yeah, really interesting. Wild times. Wild that it's not even being reported on any other news outlet, on any of the major news outlets, and certainly not being presented in that way. But also about 6 months ago, we were discussing like the Fed pivoting, the Fed printing money, and the printing of dollars. And I said at that time, the OG Bitcoin Zodiac viewers or listeners that would have been at that time,
Yeah.
that they have to print dollars. Like there's no if will they. But as I said at that time, it may not look the way that we expect it to. So make no mistake, it doesn't look like 2020 when they were printing stimmy checks and giving it directly to the public. But they are printing dollars. They are printing dollars. So it's really interesting. I think it was Mike Alfred that maybe tweeted as well about this and said, basically, buckle up and hold on to your fixed assets, hold on to your Bitcoin, hold on to your fixed assets, and just
Yes.
sit back and enjoy the show, I think. So
Yeah.
let's see how that all plays out. But yeah, just remember Elon's wise words about how the Federal Reserve works. They never go bankrupt. They're happy to bankrupt you. They're happy to debase your currency, but they just continue printing
Yeah.
on ordinary paper. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a
No,
lesson.
100%. It's such important times that we're going through. And I'm just going to drop this image right here because I love this image. It's not so much about countries. I would look at this more so in currencies for us or for us everyday people and like where we're at. And where we're storing our money, where we're storing our energy. So that's food for thought. Remember, 250 years is very closely associated to the cycle of Pluto. And right now, US is going through its 250 year, or rather its Pluto return. So it's a crucial time of shift and change. We will need to talk about it in future episodes, but we have some really interesting eclipses coming at the end of the year, which has very interesting aspects occurring with Pluto. And it's hitting, Pluto in Libra as a generational
Yeah.
planet. So I do feel like a lot of those older generations will be affected in different ways and kind of based on where in your life have you chosen to place your money? Are you in assets? Are you in liquid cash? And I think that's going to affect very much, of course, every generation, but a lot of that older generation with their Plutos in Libra. So
Hmm.
um, there's there's so much coming up, but I was texting a friend the other day and I was like, our souls really chose an interesting time to be alive. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like ever since we started recording the Bitcoin Zodiac, we're like, this is happening and this is happening. And we're like, it's not even clickbait. Like, there's just so much happening. Whereas I think that years ago, I feel like it's a pre 2020 and post 2020 now. Pre 2020, like it wasn't like this, or it was lingering in the background, but then it's really ramped up. So
Yeah, because
yeah,
it's the sort of implosion of fear. Like we're literally witnessing that. And
Lord.
I don't know the timeline for that, but it seems to be just really ramping up and going quicker and quicker and quicker. And so, as I said in previous episodes too, the thing for me is not like, will it happen? Does fiat end? Like it's not a question of will it, it's more when. And the bigger question is, what are the interventions that will come in to sort of attempt to prop that up? Because at the moment it is whack-a-mole. It's like, okay, we'll do the BTFP, we'll bail out this Silicon Valley bank. Oh no, like this, if Japan goes down and they sell their treasuries, oh well, we've got to go and bail out this, and it's just a game of whack-a-mole. And I don't blame the Fed. I don't blame Janet Yellen, even though she's like quite an interesting human. Um, you know,
That was so political. She's an
yeah, I don't
interesting
blame
human.
them because this is their job, is to keep this
Yeah.
going, is to keep it propped up. And, quite frankly, it is in also our best interest to not have these dramatic things happen. But there are definitely things going on in the background for those that are paying attention, I personally don't believe in our personal lives or in the world that really the big dramatic change doesn't happen in these big market booms and busts. It doesn't happen in like the crazy peaks and, you know, the massive downturns. It happens in the everyday, the small moves every single day where we're moving to. So I think more pay attention to like what's not being reported on, and you know, have a look behind the scenes. And sometimes you'll go, am I crazy? These experts are saying this, but I'm seeing this. You're not crazy.
You're
It
not.
is hard sometimes to figure it out if you know, if you're not an expert. But yeah, trust your gut instinct, trust your intuition as you move through these times. I mean, it is so exciting. It would be a lot more terrifying if we didn't have Bitcoin, if we didn't have gold.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
would be a much bigger problem. So
Right.
you know, I think it's an exciting time to be alive, but yeah, these things, it's getting weird. Like if you had said a year ago, oh, America is gonna, the US is gonna bail out the Bank of Japan, like people would have been like, you're a conspiracy theorist. That's extreme, extreme. Well, here we are.
Mm.
Spoiler alert. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. But let's talk about some exciting things.
We have some exciting news. Speaking of progress and expansion,
They,
and value,
yeah,
innovation, and value, of course. And I think the bringing tools that help us and support us during these times of change. So, Claire, would you like to do the honors?
yeah, absolutely. So we have something very exciting to show you guys, to support you guys, and just to give you a bit more education and value from the Bitcoin Zodiac. We have built something called the TBZ GPT, and we really wanted to build this GPT so that you would have access to us 24/7. So we've built this GPT around our education on data sets from the podcast, from other educational videos, from things that we've written about Bitcoin, about astrology, about financial astrology. And so this is really giving you access to Corinne and I 24/7. So if we're sleeping, you want to ask us a question, it's here. So I'm going to just play this video for you because I think it explains it best.
Introducing the Bitcoin Zodiac GPT. TBZ GPT is a specialized financial astrology expert designed to engage with the Bitcoin Zodiac podcast community, viewing the evolution of Bitcoin and digital assets through the lens of financial astrology. Reflecting the insights and viewpoints of Claire Marrinan and Corinne Florence, hosts of the Bitcoin Zodiac podcast, this GPT offers 24/7 access to a unique blend of astrological observation, macro analysis, Bitcoin philosophy, and crypto expertise. Without offering specific financial advice, it is programmed to provide informative and thought-provoking responses, guiding users toward a deeper understanding of Bitcoin fundamentals, Austrian economics, and the interplay between celestial patterns and the crypto markets. The Bitcoin Zodiac GPT is a friendly, engaging, and knowledgeable companion for those curious about the intersection of astrology and finance in the context of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Go ahead and ask TBZ GPT a question now.
Ta-da!
We're
Yes, I'm so excited for this. This is, you know, I'm obsessed with technology and what it's bringing us. Like, it's so, if you had told us this a year or two ago, that something like this, you know, would ever be even available in our fingertips, uh, it would have seemed odd, but here it is. And yeah, I'm really excited for this, because I do feel like it'll just help answer you guys' questions, thoughts. And like Claire said, you know, I'm sure that while listening to the podcast, you're probably like, hey, I'd like to ask this question. Please continue to go ahead and drop it in the YouTube comments or wherever you're listening, drop it to us as well. But 24/7 access now to asking the chat GPT, but Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Zodiac GPT, TBZ GPT.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are doing a pre-launch of this for our Bitcoin community. So if you are wanting to purchase this with Bitcoin, you can go ahead and do this. It is live on our website as we're speaking to you. I just do want to point out that it is only compatible with ChatGPT Plus plans or above. So you have to have access to the GPT store and to be able to load GPTs. So the free version of ChatGPT it's not compatible with. But other than that, I'm going to hand this over to Corinne, and she's going to give a little demo on how to use it and how to ask a question.
Yeah, let's play and explore in true Leo fashion. So here it is. So this is our you can see that, right, Claire?
And see
Oh, there we go. Now it's going. So this is the Bitcoin Zodiac GPT. And just like, you know, your kind of classic ask a question, drop some thoughts. So you can even have a conversation with it backwards and forwards. You would just drop your question here, but we can have a look at there's some questions that have already like kind of been put on there. So what is so special about Bitcoin? What's the link between astrology and Bitcoin? I like this question. So whether you use one of these questions or create your own, then it will just take a moment to load. And based on the various, you know, information, our downloads of brains and episodes, you will get an answer. So we can just read kind of a little summary of this. The link between astrology and Bitcoin, as explored in discussions on financial astrology, stems from the belief that financial markets and asset prices, like Bitcoin, can be influenced by astrological factors. Proponents argue that planetary alignments and movements can impact human behavior and decision making, which in turn can affect market sentiment and trading patterns. So for Bitcoin specifically, it'll go ahead and break it down, the market timing, the investor sentiment, geopolitical and economic events, and personal financial decisions. So how astrology affects that, and therefore also goes and affects Bitcoin. So there it is, quite simple. Continue to ask it questions, play around, and give us feedback. Let us know how it is, what you find interesting, what value you get out of it, what you learned from it. We're excited.
Absolutely. We're really excited. So we built this really as an educational tool. So it's there to support you in your journey in financial astrology so that you're able to eventually be able to map out Bitcoin's astrology yourself. Always listening to the Bitcoin Zodiac podcast, of course, but you'll be able to embark on this journey yourself, and like other crypto projects, you'll be able to analyze their astrology. And so this tool really supports you in that, and with this educational quality to it, so that you can really learn about financial astrology and you can learn about all the fundamentals of Bitcoin as well. So if you have questions about, well, I mean, I think it's a really legitimate one. What makes Bitcoin so special? Claire and Corinne are always banging on about how special Bitcoin is. You can go straight away and ask that question. It'll give you a really detailed response. We've been back testing this for a really long time. So we're so excited to launch it to our Bitcoiners. And then the following week, it will also be available for anyone that wants to pay in any other method as well. So super excited to launch this. And I hope you guys love it as much as we do.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful way to end this incredible episode, value-filled episode. Happy full moon in Sagittarius, everybody. Enjoy the start of Gemini season.
Absolutely. Peace, love, and Bitcoin.
Peace, love, and Bitcoin.